We're now 20 minutes late for our 1 o'clock, so I do thank you for your patience. And our 1 o'clock seminar is on, so see, going to the notes I prepared earlier, is The Future's Bright, the Future's Green. And this seminar covers one of the industry's hottest topics, the future of road transport. Specifically, taxis and private hire vehicles. And there's lots to talk about driverless cars in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, there are still hundreds of thousands of licensed drivers out there who earn their living from driving and who have some crucial decisions to make about the vehicles they've got at the moment, their existing vehicles. So, thank you for coming. You've come to the right place. Your panel of speakers today will cover the swift and dramatic development of electric vehicles, of charging points and services for those vehicles, of alternative fuels such as LPG, of bioenergy units that can be fitted to existing diesel vehicles, and the future of Euro 6 and low emission diesels. There'll be a range of questions you may wish to ask. It's gone through the process. So can I invite onto the stage our five speakers we have, and this will be all we'll be going on. Can I invite Ian Sanderson? Now Ian Sanderson is from the Dynamo Motor Company and will speak about electric vehicles. And then can I invite John Reed from Mercedes-Benz Vans, talking about the Mercedes Vito and an insight into emission technology. And our next speaker is Miles Barker of eVolt, which is about electric vehicle charging products, and Paul Oxford from Autogas, that's LPG, alternative fuels, and finally, because I've put the situation around, Simon Johnson from Seagon, which is talking about the bioenergy unit. Okay, so our first speaker today, I don't know where you want to speak from here, either from business. Yeah. Okay, is Ian Sanderson from Dynamo. Round of applause. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Ian Sanderson from Dynamo. And Dynamo Motor Company is the creator of the Nissan-based Dynamo taxi. So thank you for allowing me to talk to you today. I'm going to talk briefly about electric vehicles and emphasise three things: opportunity, leadership, and finally timing now. Starting with the opportunity. Some key pointers kicking about whether or not true. In these days of fake news, it can be difficult to know, but I think they're real. Diesel has become a public enemy, rightly or wrongly. This is much fueled by the media. It's an easy story. Volkswagen have to take a lot of the blame here, and that's real news, not fake. Politicians, councils, and legislative bodies are seizing upon it as a political message, as well as a health message, and demanding change. They can and are also creating zones for charging for getting into towns and cities. Now, however pious about electric vehicles, and some people are, I think we're all a bit guilty. We all know that late at night when you floor your throttle, whatever vehicle you're in, a diesel vehicle, you can see the pollution in the mirror. Where does it go? I'm guilty too, and whilst we can argue it doesn't affect us, when driving in the countryside, we mustn't forget that pollution knows no boundaries. It all ends up somewhere for someone or something to breathe. Now we know though, so waiting is not an option. Our fault or not, we have to seize the day and move forwards because people are now more environmentally aware. Car ownership is gradually on the decline. Young people are not coming into the market so much. They don't have a relationship with their car like they used to. So not buying so many cars. Where is that engine bit, they ask. Commercial buyers are now asking for green or low or zero emission contracts, especially in places like London and large cities like Birmingham. They want to know you're cleaning up your point of use act on emissions. Shareholder groups are demanding it more and more. I also work in the commercial space with two haulage operators, and on contracts, one recent one we got in, we do about 300 shops, and they want to know in 3 years' time how we're going to deliver at night, quietly and emission free, and that's part of our tender process. So it's a big thing now. Now, it also can be more profitable. There's much fewer moving parts and only a fire to fill up, so electric vehicles have a place. We've all lived electric, or some of us have, and it's wonderful not filling up. My second point was leadership. It's a great time for an industry such as ours to take a real lead. The taxi profile is incredibly high. Thanks to Uber and other innovations, like them or leave Uber, they're here. Never has so much been written or said about an industry as in recent years about taxi. It's incredible. We as taxis, especially hackney carriages, have a high street presence as great as the buses do. In fact, there are many more taxis than our buses, even if they do arrive in threes. Public opinion is now in favour of emission reductions, preventative rather than curative. Even the much talked about NHS is going to move towards preventative rather than curative over the course of time. On the continent, and we are still part of the EU, 2 countries are leading the way. Holland, a small but very congested country where there is massive taxi usage growth with Teslas, Leafs, Priuses and all our alternative fuel vehicles prevailing. You wouldn't in Holland buy anything else. The Dutch, interesting people. They're famous for 3 things as far as I can make out. 1, they're very tall. 2, they're great engineers. But thirdly, they are very tight with their money. They are canny folk. If they like EV, there's something in this. And then the Norwegians, the other country I mentioned. Over 1 in 3 vehicles are now EV. They are leading the way, and they're very anti-emissions. Now, Norway, of all places, hang on, don't electric vehicles, suffer in the cold? Well, they have a very cold climate, and they are buying 1 in 3 cars, electric vehicles. Back in the UK, the recharging infrastructure is going in now. We have a speaker here today. By public demand, and above all by council and government funding. Relief fast charging is also happening with the AA and the RAC moving towards being equipped to boost cars which will run out if that happens. To get people to change behaviour, we need to lead by example, and let's be honest, we are, as taxi industry, in pole position. My third point is now. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. The British are sick of being told what to do, although we do love rules. It's our opinion, as Dynamo, that the taxi industry can and will seize the day and move towards electric drive in all its forms and formats. The door is open for us to move through and secure our futures. And yes, we appreciate there's a cost, but long term the opportunity is vast. Lastly, I'm often asked how close we are to an electric future. After all, in previous years, there have been many things which we think it's going to happen now. And the answer, in my opinion, is best summed up by a football analogy. And the question, you may have heard this before, but it's very interesting. If a tiny droplet of water is placed on the centre spot of Wembley and doubles in size every minute, how long before it can be seen from the stands as a puddle? How long before we understand you can see that droplet, which doubles every minute, before you can see it? It's not weeks, it's not months, it's 39 minutes before you can see the puddle. Next question is how long before you have to get out of the stadium and when you drown, if it keeps doubling in size once you can see the puddle? The answer is 10 minutes if it keeps doubling in size every minute. The question is then, when can we see the puddle, which in our case is EV? EV, I think we're approaching the point now, like the Dutch did a couple of years ago, where we can see electric vehicles, we can see the volume there, we're getting over 100,000 sales a year, and it's a more profitable, better future for us all. The Dynamo Taxi is here today. Take a look, you'll be impressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. So, the future's bright, the future is green. Has anyone a question of Ian while I've got Ian before I bring our next speaker up? I know we're all just working, by the way. Yes? My assistant's coming over now.
Yes, you mentioned...
Just wait 1 second.
You mentioned Holland and Germany and some of the other EU countries. They don't have a working time directive there. Most of the taxis and private hire vehicles are run by major companies who can afford the fleets of vehicles. In the UK, almost everybody is self-employed, small businesses. The prices that some of these vehicles are being sold at is beyond a lot of people's reach, and we'll finish up with no cabs in the village. We'll all finish up driving slim cars.
Your question though?
The question is when are you going to have a product that is an affordable price? Because the electric vehicle is not affordable.
Okay, when can we have an affordable
Well, there's,
vehicle?
I mean,
In general terms.
soon. I mean, the answer is that with the government grants, with the schemes they're bringing in to reduce the cost of changing your vehicle. London taxis, you know, they're expensive. They're over £40,000. We're talking about a vehicle of under £40,000. It's coming. The other thing is, I mentioned on the way here, I asked my taxi driver to come here on the way here, and he spends £25 a day on diesel. I said to him, if I could reduce that to £5 a day, given your average journey is 5 miles, and you saved £100 a week, would that make a difference? He said, yes, I get a better taxi and work less hours. So I think there's a massive difference there on fuel savings and running costs, which will compensate for the cost of a new vehicle.
Okay, I think that's answered that. Okay, our next speaker is John Reed from Mercedes-Benz, who's going to give an insight into emission technology, because the rules all manufacturers have to comply with and what they mean to you. John.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, I'm hoping to share some of my my previous experience with working for a manufacturer about some of the terms of reference, really, about emissions and technology. So don't worry, it won't be death by fractions of a test result. It will be about, you may have heard some phrases. What do they mean? I think you'll see it all over the place at the moment. Euro 6. So what is Euro 6? Because it's this magic thing. You would say, well, actually, I'm assuming because there's a Euro 6, there must have been a Euro 5 and a 4 and a 3 and a 2. But nobody ever talked to me when it was Euro 1 or 2. It's like it didn't exist. So what has happened to make us so conscious of Euro? So the Euro level is a European legislative requirement for testing vehicles to make sure they meet specific standards of emissions. Okay, so as you can probably work out, a Euro 6 vehicle is probably going to be cleaner than a Euro 0 vehicle. Natural evolution will have seen to that. Euro levels started in 1994, so 20 years ago. Manufacturers as such had some rules to play by and had to produce vehicles that could comply with these requirements. So what you're measuring are a number of gases that are emitted as part of an engine operating coming out of the exhaust. So in 1994, of course, the target you had to hit was relatively large. You think of it like a dartboard. In 1994, the emissions requirement was the size of a dartboard, and they were basically saying, as a manufacturer, take your dart, hit the dartboard, you're okay, that's good. All your vehicle has to do is achieve that, hit the dartboard, and away you go with its results. What has happened, of course, over time, Euro 2, 1998, the target gets significantly smaller. So you can imagine you're going from hit the dartboard to hit a specific number to hit a double, then you've got to hit a treble, and we're now in Euro 6, pretty much you've got to hit the bullseye dead centre. Euro 7, which will be coming probably around 2021, you can imagine will be even tighter to hit. So what that means is the technology you're using in your vehicles has to be very accurate, has to be very reliable, and you have to use all of the opportunities available to you to make your vehicle efficient. Ultimately, it's about improving your fuel consumption performance and your vehicle emissions performance. So at the moment, generally, we've had a regime of classifying vehicles according to their CO2 output. So of course, as you know, the VED is based on vehicle CO2 output. And CO2 ultimately is a little bit of an anomaly, I think, in relation to vehicle emissions, in the fact that you can't design your vehicle to be good at CO2 emissions. It's good as a result of it being very fuel efficient. You burn less fuel, you produce less CO2. Now the beauty of CO2 is it's a relatively straightforward measure to use for lots of things. You can use it for a building, you can use it for a vehicle, so you can measure energy efficiency on using a term, CO2, which is pretty common. So that's a nice term of reference to use. The challenge comes, of course, is that actually if you're also wanting to measure other elements as well, so oxides of nitrogen is another one for air quality, then the two, what you start to try to do is to measure for two different results. Is your vehicle fuel efficient, and is it also producing good air quality results? So I think that what we're seeing now and evolving is perhaps an opportunity for a little bit of confusion in understanding of customers and consumers in what constitutes a a good performing vehicle. So I think certainly as a manufacturer, we have rules set for us to play by. We play by the rules to hit the relevant targets, but I think that there will be a period where actually the government will be using perhaps two different terms of measurement, and of course what you may see is different terms of measurement applied to the same vehicle. So some opportunity for confusion, but I'm sure we'll get through that. The other thing that is actually is very interesting, I think now, is that vehicles are well developed. We've had internal combustion engines for over 100 years. It's a very simple device, but it works very well. It really does deliver. And what will be happening as we approach Euro 7 in a few years' time is that actually your vehicle will not only have to hit this absolute centre bullseye, probably with a smaller dart, but measuring its performance will start to challenge not only vehicle technology, it will start to challenge laboratory devices. So you will find it challenging to measure the particles that you are emitting, because you are now going to start to measure so small that it's going to become quite a significant change in how we do that. So I think that there's no doubt in my mind Euro 6 is the current legislative requirement. It is a very clean vehicle. It is challenging to achieve that, but I think that if you are buying Euro 6 vehicles now, you're probably going to be in the safest place to deal with any local legislative requirements that are introduced to improve air quality. The other thing I think is, and I think we mentioned it before, is that diesels are common. They have proliferated because ultimately they are reliable and they are very good at fuel consumption. Therefore, they are very good at CO2. Therefore, they hit all of those corporate legislative requirements. Controversially, I'd probably say that I wouldn't necessarily agree with the feeling that the government made us do it. The government didn't make people buy diesels. The market has naturally bought them because they are good at what they do. So I think that actually trying to now legislate against them is perhaps a little bit unfair, and I think that perhaps in the absence of an immediate alternative, any legislation has to recognise that whilst you might be able to drive vehicles you don't like out of the market, there has to be something to replace it that customers will buy and be able to operate commercially. So there has to be a means to make money for your business. So I think we talked about alternatives. As a manufacturer, of course, we are exploring all alternatives. I think that if I was doing some crystal ball gazing for the future, I think normal engines will remain the power source of choice for the future. So I would say that the latest emission Euro 6 engines will, for the future, remain the mainstay of vehicle power. I think that alternative power sources will deliver an alternative, strangely, but it has to be in the right place, the right vehicle in the right place. I think that what will naturally happen is, if you're using alternative power sources, they'll be really good in the right place, but they are not going to be the universal solution that conventional engines have offered up until now. And I think the other part that definitely will happen is the pace of technical change will find it challenging to keep up with the desire of political change. So political change will assume that if you put a requirement in place, magically all of the people who are producing technology will have a solution up their sleeve that they kept secret, they haven't told you about. Believe me, if those solutions are there, manufacturers will use them because that is competitive advantage. So they will continue to develop solutions to problems or challenges, but I think that we will end up for the future with a mixed bag of vehicle solutions. I don't think there's going to be one technology that will be best above all others. It will be the right technology in the right place.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Any questions for John? 1 second, Donna? Yes, we've got got 3, so take your pick.
Competitive market, does Mercedes-Benz have any future ideas of bringing out an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle like Dynamo Taxi at all?
Yes. So our
How soon?
ultimately, I think our future fuels strategy, which is in the public domain, it's on the Daimler website, ultimately is conventional engines, optimising conventional engines because they are still going to be the mainstay. It will be bringing in hybrid technologies, not just what you would imagine a hybrid vehicle, but improving the use of technology to make vehicles more efficient. And then electric vehicles and fuel cell vehicles, so they are also on this development agenda. I think that a series production ready vehicle is probably still a couple of years away. I think that the reliability and testing will mean that we would hope still some way away from that.
Okay, so
What you can't do is describe diesel as very clean. On the day, a couple of weeks ago, that the government launched its consultation on emissions, BBC reported that alongside its own real-world report of discovering that diesel emissions were 10 to 12 times the published figures. Now, in that light, that's why Islington Council has for the past year been charging extra to get a residence parking permit if you have a diesel vehicle, why City of Westminster in Marylebone is beginning charging penal parking rates for having diesel hybrid as well. So car manufacturers have a lot to answer for. It is hugely popular for there to be a clampdown against diesel. The electorate loves it to clamp down against those rogues amongst car manufacturers. There is no doubt. The car manufacturing industry would lose that political battle, as I'm sure your lobbying firms will inform you. So you've got to get clean. But tell me what you think is the future in the light of that you are running against, as it were, the public will.
I think that and I mentioned this before, I think the danger is that there will be a period with the introduction of revised legislative tests for emissions. I think there will be a period where there's a danger of misinformation. I think the danger is that you'll start to compare test criteria that differ, and if the test criteria differ, the result will differ. And if you then say, well, of course, I tested it to these criteria and it's different to the result I got with this one, they're never going to be the same. I think that's the danger, is you have to take a view that actually if you test it if you run 100 metres in 10 seconds, that's good. If you then say, well, you've got to run 200 metres in 10 seconds now, that's never going to happen. It's going to be 20 seconds. And then say, well, actually, there's something wrong here. You've taken 20 seconds there and 10 seconds there. So I think there's a period now where I think that I hope there will be some objective view of what measurement method is being used for vehicles, so that you can have some comparison. Ultimately, the measurement methods are going to always find it difficult to create a real-world equivalent, but what they should do and have been doing historically is give everybody the same rules to play by, so that you as a consumer can make a comparison between vehicles. And that's ultimately will always have to be the aim of it. It has to be a level, common test, so that you can compare one vehicle against the other and make a judgment on which to buy.
okay, I'm going to ask that third question.
It's the same as the first question.
Fine. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, so our next speaker is Miles Barker from APT Controls, stroke eVolt, electric vehicle charging products and services. Miles.
Thank you, Graham. Well, thank you for the opportunity today. So what we're going to do is a brief introduction to who we are, because probably quite a lot of you don't know. We then talk a little bit about background, pollution emissions, that sort of thing, and then what funding is available to support, or what measures are available through HMRC to support infrastructure, the installation of the infrastructure, the maintenance and supply. So we're here today in support of Dynamo. We're pairing up with them to provide the charging infrastructure. We are eVolt, part of the Swarco group of companies, a major global traffic management and parking management company. We sell all sorts of kit, I won't go into at the moment, obviously EV chargers. We've been operating in the market for about 6 years now. We've provided charging infrastructure for companies in about 80 councils so far. We're about 30% of the market in the UK. We do anything from domestic chargers all the way up to rapid charging infrastructure. You're welcome to come and have a look at what we've got on the stand, the Dynamo stand. That's representative of what we would supply to support electric taxis. So, in terms of where we're going, well, we've got issues at the moment with local authorities having to put in place clean air zones. A number of cities, including Birmingham, Derby, Leeds, Nottingham, Southampton as an area. And of course, that consultation out at the moment is to do with clean air zones that Jonathan mentioned earlier. It's likely that those locations are going to have charges for billing, a monetary charge for people coming into those zones with a vehicle that's not compliant with Euro 6 if it's diesel or Euro 4 if it's petrol. It's a similar situation to the ultra-low emission zones mooted for London at the moment. So using an electric vehicle which is obviously zero tailpipe emissions means that you're not subject to that charge. You're actually doing something to reduce the number of deaths caused by local air quality issues, which in the press you'll see it's around 40 or 50,000 people a year, about 20 million or billion, cost of to the health service for those premature deaths, and around 6 million working days that are lost because of air quality. So that's particulate matter and NOx we're talking about here. So yeah. So we know that the taxi market is a fairly small park compared with the rest of the UK. It's about 0.7% of vehicles on roads, but it is one of the easiest ways of cleaning up local air quality issues within a city. Of course, government is also funding support to move buses to electrification or lower emission drivetrain technologies as well, and also they're looking at cars, vans, etc. So it's not just taxis they're tackling essentially. So in terms of the support that's out there, if you want the charging infrastructure installed at home or in other places. At home there's a national scheme called the EV Home Scheme, which gives you £500 towards a charger installed at home. There's a number of cities, Birmingham, Coventry, London, obviously, Nottingham, Dundee, West Yorkshire Combined Authority, Oxford, Cambridge, Wolverhampton, Slough have all got funding from government to help install infrastructure. That's 75% of the cost of the equipment. What I would recommend if you are wanting to start to use electric vehicles is talk to your local council. If they're off that list, it's great. If they're not, it's still worth having a chat to see whether they're willing to help fund some of the infrastructure for you, whether it's on private land or their own land. So we're there, I specifically work in the taxi area we know all these councils, we know what the funds are, we know there's some enhanced capital allowances out there for both infrastructure and the vehicles. Please come and talk to us if you need to know a bit more information.
Okay, thank you, Miles. Any questions for Miles on electric charging points? Maybe we'll store one up for when we've heard our 5 speakers. Well, I was going to invite Paul Oxford up next from Autogas, but I've just seen your socks, Paul, so I'm sorry. With that apart,
I'll keep them covered up.
Okay, Paul is here from Autogas, and he's going to talk about LPG and alternative fuels. And as if by magic, the presentation's already up. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. That is me, Business Development Manager for Autogas. And I'd like to give you a brief overview today of how LPG can help in the fight to improve air quality, and in particular a solution for black cab drivers. Just a very brief snippet of who We are Autogas Limited. We're a joint venture company formed in 2000 between Cala and Shell, with the express aim of improving the availability of automotive LPG across the retail sector. It's already been touched on very briefly, but this is the state of play with regards to the UK's air quality crisis. The first statement there was actually made by Sadiq Khan when he took up the role of London Mayor. And I think it's fair to say that when you've got 40,000 deaths being caused by poor air pollution or poor air quality every year, I think you could quite honestly say that the ticking time bomb has probably gone off and it's not waiting anymore. And to put that into perspective, that is a town the size of Newbury being wiped off the map every year. And I think it's fair to say that if any other
What's wrong with that?
if any other natural disaster was causing 40,000 deaths a year, I think something should have been done or would have been done before now. There'd been absolute public outcry over it. 9,000 of those deaths are in London alone. And as somebody picked up earlier, it's been a self-created problem, I think, with the dieselisation of the UK fleet. There's been a consequential increase in NOx, NO2 and PM as a result of the increased uptake of diesel, and 20 billion cost to the UK economy. This all culminated in 2 legal actions last year to the High Court and then eventually to the Supreme Court. On both of those occasions, the law found in favour of Client Earth, and that has led now to the government publishing a draft air quality plan only just this month. I think we all agree the future is going to be electric and ultimately other fuel sources, but these are going to take time to integrate into the current psyche of the UK. And that's not just infrastructure, that's sort of battery technology and so on and so forth. And what we're proposing, as one speaker said earlier, I think it's now about a selection of fuels, best fuel for best purpose. And thankfully the government's moved away now in its stance about being all about electric. It's now about a basket of fuels approach, I think, going forward. What is LPG? Well, you've probably used it already, maybe without knowing it. Gas barbecues, patio heaters on pub patios. Over 30,000 forklift trucks operate across the UK on LPG. If you've been to one of the many park home sites across the UK, your chances are you've heated or you've cooked with propane. And that is it, that is what we're running vehicles on. And it's not a new fuel for automotive use. In fact, most of Europe has been using it for now on 40 odd years. It's just in the UK we tend to be a little bit more, I suppose, blinkered in our approach to adopting other technology. It's derived from natural gas in the natural gas fields, and it's extracted during the oil refining process. It's transported globally. It's transported nationally across the UK in tankers, where it eventually ends up on the forecourt network. And there you can see one of our typical installations. These are the operational cases for LPG. Running cost savings, I'll come on to that a little bit later. Extensive refuelling network, there's over 1,400 fuel stations now. 1 in 4 Shell sites now covers or carries LPG. Similar driving characteristics that you experience with a petrol vehicle. In fact, if you come along to our stand later, you'll be able to also test drive a vehicle outside and look at these vehicles in more detail. Lower emissions, range anxiety, that sort of disappears with LPG. Refuelling exactly the same as petrol or diesel. Now no groundwater pollution. And as I say, it's a proven technology with a worldwide pedigree. And we've also got bunkered back to base refuelling options for small fleets of vehicles. Taxis now being targeted as polluters, as somebody said earlier, that's now one of the sort of key target areas for government. And why did we get involved with this? It was principally on the back of a project run by Birmingham City Council. And we tested 3 diesel-powered TX taxis, none of which met any current Euro standard, which was quite an indictment. Birmingham City Council got the bit between the teeth under what they called their NOx reduction programme, which basically entailed the awarding of a £500,000 grant under the Clean Vehicle Technology Fund, and this led to the repowering of 63 black cabs within Birmingham, which are now running successfully on LPG. Initially, attempts were made to re-engineer the old diesel engine, but when we got involved with this, that wasn't the way forward. So what we've actually done now, and you'll see on the vehicles outside, we've replaced the diesel engine with a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine, which then has a bespoke engine management system and fuel system developed for it to run 100% on LPG. It has a 100 litre LPG tank and a 12-litre petrol tank to aid cold starts on very cold winter mornings. That's on a TX2 installation. It's the same on a TX4, it's the same engine that's used. And those were the emission results achieved at Millbrook under the Senex PCO cycle compared with the original diesel engine. So we saw a 99% reduction in particulate matter, 80% reduction in NOx, and a 7% reduction in CO2. So certainly on the local air quality points, a massive improvement over the base diesel vehicle. This is what's involved. The vehicle itself, or the repowering, will cost £9,800 on a TX2 and £9,900 on a TX4. That includes the replacement of the whole powertrain, or the engine, complete new fuel system, new exhaust, new radiator and new steering pump, plus a full tank of petrol and LPG when you take the vehicle away. Very brief slide there on the maintenance and warranty. Won't dwell too much on that, and the time is of the essence. We've got a vehicle which you'll see on our stand, which is soon to complete a 10,000 mile durability test in London. We can sell this vehicle in any other town and city in the UK, but for London we have to get Public Carriage Office approval, and we hope to obtain that towards the end of May. That is the big benefit. 100 brake horsepower engine, similar torque curve to the diesel. I challenge anyone to notice any difference with this. The big difference, quieter, less vibration. As one driver in Birmingham quoted to me, he said it makes for a whole better day at the office. You know, you're spending your whole working life in these vehicles, so it does make a difference. In terms of London and Reading, you get a 5-year extension by converting your black cab to run on LPG. And notwithstanding, the Birmingham drivers are getting a £200 a month fuel saving compared to running LPG over diesel. So we meet Euro 6. We've already covered the particle, NOx and CO. And there's the summary of some of the points I've covered. But just to show how much we are on the radar now of government, in the air quality strategy, the draft air quality strategy, £35 million has now been allocated for taxi retrofitting to LPG. So we're very pleased now that we're certainly under the skin of government and really how LPG can play a part along with the other fuel technology around and about at the moment. So it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but thanks for that, and I'll take any questions. Or visit our stand later for a more sort of in-depth and have a look at the vehicles.
Okay, any questions for Paul? Yes, we have one again.
Hi Paul. Is there a problem with the insurance? There is any problem with insurance after you've had the vehicle converted or anything like that?
None whatsoever, no. None of the drivers in Birmingham, as I say, 63 of them, none of the drivers have reported any problems. We obviously advise that they make the insurance company aware of the extra expenditure on the vehicle and the fact that it's now running on LPG, but we've had no feedback that it increases premiums or anything such as that.
I think you will find there has been one where the vehicle got written off and he's only been paid £1,300. So
Right.
I think you need to look into
I
that.
don't know, was that in Birmingham?
That's in Birmingham.
Okay, I'll make some inquiries.
I don't want to go into specifics.
No.
I'll ask your question
Yeah.
afterwards. I'll bring our fifth speaker up and then we'll have a general for the 5. So, no, Don, I'll answer that question. Okay, so at that point, thank you very much, Paul. Our last speaker is Simon Johnson of Seagon. And what Seagon does is, well, we've talked about vehicles, we've talked about charging points and different fuels, and this is about basically a unit that can be fitted to an existing diesel vehicle, am I right, Sam?
You're correct, yes.
Okay,
No need to say any more.
Right, I'll thank you very much for your time. Okay, Simon.
Okay, so my name is Simon Johnson, I've been introduced. I am managing director of a company called Seagun. We manufacture this, and I've brought it with me. It's not in the car park. We can't drive it. It's here in my hand. This is technically what's called an electrolyzer. And basically the way it works is we fill it with a very weak hydroxide solution, pass a current through it, about 2 amps, and it produces a type of hydrogen called orthohydrogen, which is an unusual type of hydrogen. It's 2.5 times more powerful than standard hydrogen. And we mix that with the fuel air mix that goes into our engine with quite spectacular results. And if I flick onto the next slide very quickly, it should be a second one up there. Okay. The results are that we actually achieve up to a 95% reduction in PM and PM, which is particulate matter, and ultrafines, which is the PM number. We also reduce NOx. So on a Euro 6 engine, which are basically the cleanest engines we've already heard today, we can reduce NOx by at least 30%, and that's independent testing we've done with Emissions Analytics, who are the private sector equivalent of Millbrook. The third bonus is actually we achieve a fuel saving of up to 25%, and it almost sounds too good to be true. It's quite hard to get that across to people. How many fit this small box? It reduces your emissions, cuts the particulate matter, reduces the NOx, increases fuel efficiency, but it's too good to be true. Well, independent testing, we've achieved that. Now, I know there's a couple of people here in the audience today that have already got them. We've been working recently with Birmingham TOA. Dave Stuckman, I see Imran there. He can testify that actually what I've said is true. A typical driver in Birmingham Imran tells me they're spending about £125 a week on diesel. They're already seeing savings of £20 a week, which we equate to about 16%. So don't believe me, Birmingham TOA, they're the people to go to. I'm going to try and keep this quick because you've all been very patient.
No, I'm
all very hungry. No, I tell you, you're all very hungry.
I'm just bringing people in as we go along, that's all.
So that's in principle. Now, it's just to talk about the technology and how it works. It's actually quite old technology. It was invented by NASA in 1953. And there are quite a few systems on the market. This is one of our problems. The systems on the market use stainless steel plates. They require up to about 30 amps to get into the realm, which makes them unusable in automated technology because you actually put too much stress on the wiring loom, on the alternator, on the battery. And our systems run at between 2 and 3 amps, so it causes no stress to the alternator or the battery. If you've come across one of these systems before, has no harmful byproducts. So traditional systems were producing something called hexavalent chromium, which is, you've seen Aaron Brockovich, is the horrible brown stuff that kills all the fish in the river and makes a good film. Bad if you're a fish. Ours has no harmful byproducts at all. You have to top it up about every 6,000 miles with this weak peroxide or hydroxide solution. That costs you about £2. So 25% fuel savings, typically on average an 80% reduction in emissions, and it costs £2 every 6,000 miles to top up. Questions?
Okay, any questions of Simon? Yes? Yes, we're...
Why can't,
gentleman over here?
why can't you sell it to being a factory-fitted option?
Okay, so I had anticipated that question, so just to get my pre-prepared answer. We can, actually, next week it goes into Millbrook with Alexander Dennis, who make buses, so they're fitting as OEM equipment on their buses. We've already done 5 million miles of testing with the Stobart Group. They got an 8% improvement in fuel efficiency, which equates to a £42 million saving in diesel over a 3-year life cycle of one of their trucks. We're fitting it to mining generator sets. This for us isn't about taxis. We did some work with Imran and very kindly got invited to the show. Taxi market's incredibly important to us. But actually we're testing with Arriva and hoping to apply that to 14,000 buses across the whole of the DB marketplace. We're sitting on orders with a number of Southwest hauliers worth millions of pounds right now. It has a massive impact. We already know that one renowned German business has got it in their design department, about to copy it, and we're about to start legal proceedings with those. It's worldwide patented, developed in the UK, and manufactured, more importantly, in the UK as well.
Okay, right, at this point I want to throw open any questions to the panel.
Can I sit down now, or you can ask?
You can, sorry, you can sit down now, Simon, I do apologise. Because I've had to bring along, we've talked about electric vehicles, we talked about charging points, we talked about alternative fuels, and the Seagun unit. Before I wrap this up, have we got any question we want to ask our panel? Yes, Donna. Donna? It's all right. Donna? Gentleman over there. And if people want to keep coming in to the the main part of the entrance, please.
Yeah, the unit that we just spoke about, that would be a retrofit unit.
Yes.
So, is it an accessory? So therefore, local authorities could accept that because it's an accessory on the vehicle, that's all.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a retrofit unit. It's £650 fully fitted. You carry it off the road for 2 hours. So it has some advantage over some of the more major changes you might be considering if you're running a fleet. It can be fitted at any VOSA equipped MOT station because you do have to tune the box to work with your exhaust emissions. We need to find the sweet spot in order to get the emissions absolutely right and get the best effect and result. But it's £650, it's fitted in 2 hours, and it is an accessory, has no impact on your insurance or any other factors in the car.
Okay, any more questions of our panel on this subject? Okay, right, well thank you very much, gentlemen. I think we've got a grounding into the future. Well, let's hope the future's bright, the future's green, and it's economical. I think that's the point everyone wants to find out.